steps into it. Pass is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Vikings win it!
Strap yourself in and get ready.
Here we go, here we go!
The leaders in fantasy football are incoming, giving you the ultimate insight to help you win your leagues and dominate your mates. You're now listening to the Insight NFL Show with your hosts, Guns and Maverick.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go!
Let's go! Go!
Alrighty, welcome back to another week of fantasy football. I'm your host, Nathan from Supercoach Guns, and with me is Matt, aka NFL Maverick. Matt, how are you going?
Another week coming in, mate. I don't really know if my emotions can handle another week in some leagues. My mental state for this game is diminishing quickly. So we'll see how we can go this week, mate. Let's see if we can nail some good takes and hopefully we can get some W's on the board for everyone's sake.
Yes, we're a bit. I don't know about you, but I haven't got any middling teams in fantasy football this year. They're either 8-3 or better, or they're 3-8, I suppose. Is that a common feeling?
Yeah. Yep. I've got one middling team. Two middling teams. So actually, I'm all over the place, mate. I'm
You're all over the
top,
place.
middle, and on the bottom. I'm everywhere. So, yeah, that's probably not a good thing to do. But well, that's just where we're at.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, let's not waste any time. Let's get straight into it. Or waste any time. That's a bit harsh, but let's get straight into it. Steelers Browns tomorrow midday. I believe this is the Steelers home game, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just going to go with that and say yes, it is. Now, obviously, when you talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and playing against them, it's the number one defense in the league, right? So immediately, this screams alarm bells for those who are stream starting Jameis Winston.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a hard one for pretty much all Browns players. Like game script wise, you'd expect them to be down, so they should be playing but from behind and should be slinging the ball left, right, and center. But in saying that, the Steelers don't really thump anyone either, so they might keep this relatively close. I'm expecting George Pickens to have a big game. I'm expecting him to break out for a long ball at some stage. Anything over 25 yards, I wouldn't be shocked at all. So yeah, all in all, mate, it's one of those games where I look at and I go, all right, probably the best player that I can possibly start this week is George Pickens, followed by Najee Harris. And then after that, you can take your pick on one of the Browns wide receivers or tight end. I'd probably roll with take your pick on a wide receiver, but I'd probably roll with Cedric Tillman if I was to pick the third best option.
Yeah, like I'll give you a stat here for Jameis Winston. No quarterback this season has surpassed 18.4 fantasy points against the Steelers. So what does that mean? Don't be banking on a big game from Jameis Winston. I think he'll still throw for close to 300 yards. I just think he's more likely to throw for 3 picks and 1 touchdown rather than it be the opposite, you know? I'm not sure. Like, obviously, yeah, you spoke about George Pickens. This is a really good matchup for him, I believe. He's had a solid, not a solid, a very good stretch of over the last 4 games. Week 7, he got 22. Then in week 8, he got 11.4. A bye in week 9. Washington week 10, he got 20.5, and then Baltimore last week 16.9. That's an insane average with Russell, and that's all games with Russell Wilson at quarterback, I'm pretty sure. So clearly he's elevated Pickens into an elite wide receiver 1 category for fantasy football. And there's a 3-game stretch here where they play Cleveland twice and Cincinnati once. I really do expect George Pickens to go well above, to average more than 15 points a game in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got, as you said, a really, really good rest of season schedule. And this is the start of it, really. So, yeah, mate, I truly believe he's going to really have a massive game. If I'm talking running backs, I'm not playing any of what the Browns have got at the moment. It's just far too inconsistent to start until you start actually seeing some production out of them. Maybe even goal line work as such, because I don't think Nick Chubb's seen one all year. Well, maybe seen one. At his first week back, I think he saw one goal line carry. Outside of that, man, I can't get around it. Him or Jerome Ford, it's been gross for the most part. But yeah, Najee, if we're talking about running backs as well, Najee should have a nice, safe floor with a really high ceiling in this game too.
Particularly if they get really far out ahead. Like, let's say that this is a bit of a blowout. They'll just be grounding, ground and pound, I think is the term, with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. Like, they'll probably take Russ out of the game. They'll probably put Fields in, and they'll just stand off to Najee and Warren, and that could be almost the entirety of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, the other thing I'd say though is this is a divisional matchup, which does make it a bit more. Or it sort of screams to me that the Browns will try and perform a bit better than what they have been. I just feel as though these individual matchups they bring out a spark in some shit teams as well. So I truly believe that it'll probably be a bit closer than what we expect, and it is actually a Browns home game too. So hopefully they can show something and keep it relatively close for us to actually enjoy the game.
Now, I've got a quick question, and it's a bit of an obscure one here, but if you were looking to start and you could only start one of them, out of David Montgomery and Najee Harris.
That's very obscure.
Very obscure, I know.
And very random, might I add. But
Yeah.
I'd probably roll with David Montgomery.
Yeah, okay. I'm looking at that in a league, and I'm just contemplating it a little bit. So I thought I'd throw that out there. Now don't think there's much more in that game. I don't know if you said it before, and I've completely forgotten. But David Njoku's, as always, a safe play. It's just David Njoku. Like, he's a top tight end. Yeah, you play him. He'll be the safety net for Winston if he doesn't feel like he should be throwing downfield, which is unlikely as well. But
it's just hard with this Browns wide receivers though, because they've got like I'm going to include Njoku in those wide receivers. You've got 4 solid options to throw it to. With Jerry Jeudy, who's really been performing the last couple of weeks, and Tillman's broken out the last 4. Elijah Moore has been very active in the last ever since Winston's been in the center, really. And then obviously Njoku, who you said is just one of the safest options you can have at tight end. So it's going to be one of those, and I sort of compare it to the Packers in a way, where you just don't know who's going to be the number one on any given day.
Yeah. Now, obviously, but much like the Packers, there is always the safe, guaranteed play, the highest floor of them all. So the Packers, it's probably Jaden Reed, but for the Cleveland Browns, it's very clearly Njoku, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Now, the next game, we've got the Chiefs and the Panthers. Now, there's like a 0.0001% chance that the Panthers upset the Chiefs, but if they do, it might be one of the greatest days in human history.
Yeah, could you imagine?
There'd be parades for it. There'd have to be parades for it, and the amount of Mahomes slander as well.
Yeah, it's going to be. This is actually a really interesting game for fantasy, though, I must admit, because we do have the potential return of Pacheco. That's still, he was practicing. It was a limited practice today. They're not sure yet if he's playing or not. Maybe not. We're not 100% sure. And then we've got the debut of Jonathan Brooks with the hot hand of Chuba Hubbard too. So if we're talking running backs in this matchup, there's a lot of question marks in both sides of the field in terms of how they're going to use a returning Pacheco potentially and a debuting Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah, I wonder if on the Chiefs side at running back, like only 14 carries for or 14 touches of the football even for uh, Kareem Hunt last week. Yes, he had 14 carries against Denver, but he also had 7 catches on 10 targets. But if we have a look at Kareem Hunt, I think they are getting prepared to bring Pacheco back and starting to sort of wind him back to the goal line guy, which is what he will probably be. Um, where would you rank Isaiah Pacheco for the rest of the season? Is he a high end RB1 or are you more pessimistic and he's a mid range RB2?
Well, Kareem Hunt's still in the house, and he's been performing pretty well. So I don't think he's going to be just thrown to the side and gone, "You're not going to be used anymore." I think it might be a 75-25 split with Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. And Kareem Hunt, they've already said it's going to be a sort of a change of pace running back. The difference is between these two running backs is I think that Pacheco's got a big playability compared to Kareem Hunt not having that big playability, being a bit older. So I can see a world where Pacheco will need a couple of weeks to get going and potentially, and especially his passing down work too. He's obviously pretty elite in that too. So there's every chance that he could be probably a low end RB1 when fantasy playoffs start in week 15.
Mm. If your league doesn't have a trade window, and I know that's the case for some of them, I'd be going out of my way to get Isaiah Pacheco, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And mate, if he plays in this matchup as well, um, look, I do believe he'll be limited in the work that he uses. It could
Mm.
be a 50-50 split between him and Kareem Hunt. But you'd expect these guys to put a lot of points on the Panthers anyway. And the Panthers defense through the air, their secondary or their run defense, it doesn't matter. They're pretty bad wherever they put them. So there's points here on the table for everyone involved. I think Patrick Mahomes should have a really nice day. Should have a safe floor in this matchup. Who's been pretty damn average for the year for fantasy, might I add. But this is for me, this is a smash start for all Chiefs players. Worthy, I'd roll the dice on Worthy. I know he's real bring or bust, but I'd roll the dice on Worthy. I'd roll the dice. Well, not roll the dice, but yeah, obviously smash start Kelsey. And yeah, would I roll the dice on Pacheco? Probably would. And if you're an owner that has Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, fuck.
Oh,
Probably go with the maybe with the upside of Pacheco, maybe.
ooh, yeah, okay.
But we'll have to wait to see what they say for the remainder of the week until the lead up to the game to see how much work they're going to give Pacheco, because I dare say that you'll know that in the next couple of days.
It's interesting that you say go for the upside. I viewed it more conservatively, and I would go with the safety of going for the fully fit guy in Kareem Hunt. But that's just
Look,
you know,
the
like
way I see
yeah,
it, I know what you mean. I don't
mm,
disagree with that either. The way I see it though with Pacheco is if he's healthy, right? If he's
yeah,
healthy,
he's a
he's going to be
gun.
fresh.
Yeah,
He hasn't played for 8 or 9 weeks. Yeah, I know it's a pretty bad injury and everything like that, but he can be fresh against a really, really bad defense. So there's every chance that he might have like a 30 or 40-yard touchdown and go boom.
yeah,
So anyway, just watch this
and
space with what they
yeah,
say over the next couple of days with Pacheco.
yeah, definitely. And I think I again, I can't remember if you mentioned it or not, but DeAndre Hopkins smash start, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like I, because the connection with Mahomes, it looked good in his first game, 8 catches for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? And then it's sort of gone slightly off the boil since. Like he's still getting some volume, but not he's not having a big game like he did 3 weeks ago. But I wouldn't put it past him to go pretty darn big against Carolina this week.
Yeah. I start all Chiefs players, mate. That's how I
Yeah.
see it.
Chuba Hubbard, even with Jonathan Brooks returning, with the form he's in, you start him.
Yeah.
Wide receivers, take your pick. I kind of like
None.
Leggett the most of them all, but if you really have to start one, I would try and look elsewhere.
Yeah.
Here's a stat on Jatavian Sanders though that you might find a bit interesting. Said no one ever, but you've got he's finished as the tight end 16 or higher in his 4 of his 5 last games. Um, and the Kansas City Chiefs have allowed the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends this season.
Did you say 16 or over?
16 tight ends
Tight
16
ends.
or higher. It's not a high
That's-
bar, but it's a
I
bar.
was going to say, that's not a high bar. That could be a total of 5 points, might I add, at tight end 16.
But more to that, 5 points is not terrible at tight end at times
Yeah.
this year. Well, no,
Yeah.
what I'm really referring to is that he's now their tight end one. Like you see, last
Yeah.
2 weeks he's seen over 85% of the snaps, and Kansas City concede a fair few points to tight end. If you're desperate for a tight end streaming option, i.e., you have someone like Kyle Pitts, someone like Dalton Kincaid on the bye, you could do worse because no one's picking him up when he's playing the Chiefs, right? Uh, but if you look a bit deeper, the stats not terrible. Um, we've also just had a question come in here. Uh, should I trade Quinton Johnston for Devonta Smith? Um,
Yes.
yes. If someone's offering that to you, you take it. They'll give you Devonta Smith for Quinton Johnston. Yes, you take that. But on the flip side, if you're offering that, no way would anyone accept it. Um, Now, next game we've got the Vikings and the Bears. This is an in division game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, well, I don't really know what to make of this one. So, what are your initial thoughts?
So I'm going to start with the Bears. Now, the Vikings defense or run defense has been awesome for the whole year. So DeAndre Swift is going to be limited, I reckon. He's going to have to be able to break out for a 30-yarder or something like that to have a good day, in my opinion. I'd be shocked if he scores over 10 points in this game unless he has that a touchdown or anything like that to go along with it. But if we're talking yardage and passing down work, I'd be very limited on what I see with Swift. But in saying that, I expect the passing game to be a bit more crisper, should I say, with another week of the OC in the house. DJ Moore probably is a wide receiver 3 coming into the week still. Probably a high end wide receiver 3, might I add. With Star with a question mark next to that. Upside, because he's still a star in the league, but just very limited what he can do. So yeah, if you have to start DJ Moore, I don't hate it because he had 7 catches last week for 61 yards with the new OC. So yeah, in terms of DJ Moore, that's how I view him. And then maybe a Doomsday is not a bad play if you needed to as well. Keenan Allen, you can't start. Nope. And Cole Kmet, probably not either.
There's a lot of volume for Roma Dunze last week. 10
Yeah.
targets, 6 catches, 65 yards. That's very encouraging. Um, Even Keenan Allen, he saw 8 targets. Like, it's just that he didn't convert that into many catches, only 4 catches. But yeah, Keenan Allen looks a little bit past it now. Hasn't had more than 6 catches in a game at all this year, despite having a lot of targets. And also, like, you've got DJ Moore and Roma Dunze, who are 2 studs, right? It's just it's time to feed them the ball.
Yeah.
Um,
Screenplay. That's the best
Yeah.
mantra.
yeah, which is a good way of blooding in a rookie, I must say. Don't
Yeah.
give him too many hard passes.
It gets predictable though.
It does get predictable. That is the one downside. Like you're starting Justin Jefferson no matter what. I'm not even tempering expectations, to be honest. I get he's on Jalen Johnson, but the dude's just better than every corner in the league.
Yeah. Yeah. And he loves
Like-
the challenge too. So
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. He rises above that challenge. Hawkinson, would I look at Hawkinson? Probably not. Josh Oliver seems to be still in the house getting some work too. So I'm giving Hawkinson another week on a bad matchup. But in saying that, I think Aaron Jones should be a nice play this week. Probably an RB2 coming into the week, but he should be a nice play.
Yeah, I when you've if you've traded for TJ Hawkinson, you've traded for him not for immediate impact because like he's still returning from a major ACL tear, right? But I think as we get close to fantasy playoffs, that's when he's that snap share will get north of 75, 80%. That's when he'll really start to connect with Sam Darnold. But for now, he's pretty safe just to sit on your bench. Just had another question come in. I'm in a deep league 14 man. Need a flex option. Jalen McMillan, Audric Estime, Trey Benson, or Nick Westbrook Aquino. Um,
Could have meant Russell Westbrook there for a second.
um, I might actually go. Oh well, yeah. I'm not gonna go Westbrook Aquino. No, that's really bad. Okay, do you have a shot and say that Audric Estime might get 14 carries for 50 yards this week? Maybe a touchdown.
No.
No. Okay, so then we've narrowed it down to
I'm narrowing it
Jalen
down
Mc.
to. Oh, I'm actually going down the Benson Westbrook path.
Yeah, I'm going down the McMillan Benson. So maybe that says Benson, but Benson doesn't
Yeah.
do anything. No, I'm going
Yeah.
Jalen McMillan. There you go.
I'm going Westbrook Akine,
Alrighty.
which is pretty yuck.
It's not great either way. Um, yeah. Well, let's move to the next game. I don't think there's much more in that Vikings Bears game. The Titans and the Texans. Now, we just talked about Westbrook Akine. He has had um, a ridiculous amount of touchdowns. He's scored 5 in the last 6 games. He he's just he's a Hail Mary flex play, really. There's not
I'll
much
be
more
back
to
in one
say
sec.
on him.
I'll be back in one
Yeah,
sec.
no worries. I'll keep talking. If you have a look at this Titans lineup, I think it's just Tony Pollard. I've got Tony Pollard ranked as probably a high mid RB2. Yeah. He'll just see enough volume that he'll get to a solid score. Joe Mixon, I have as a high end RB1 this week. I think he's RB2 in points per game or RB1 in points per game. I expect that to continue. I see no reason that Mixon can't keep delivering. And Nico Collins with another week under his belt. Uh, yeah, Nico Collins will, I reckon, go absolutely bananas in this game.
I don't disagree with you, mate. I really like the Nico Collins play this week. One game back from injury, as you said. I mean, albeit he had a touchdown ripped apart from him on the against the Cowboys, which never have. Well, it was a holding call, but whatever. But yeah, I agree, mate. I think that Nico's fine. It is a tough defense, the Titans. I know they're sitting at 2-8, but they do make things tough for wide receivers. So yeah, that's another one there that should be viewed upon. But same with Tank Dell, mate. I'm probably on the fence with Tank Dell coming into this week. Against again a relatively good defense. Well, sort of. It makes it hard. They make it hard. So, but Mixon should be the one, mate. I agree with Mixon. Should have a really, really solid volume. Again,
Yeah, let me see if I can find. Yeah, there's Mixon. There's his numbers. Okay, like other than his injury game and the game he returned from injury, he hasn't gone below 20 carries in a game yet. Right? He's also scored in every full game he's played, and He's just had a three touchdown game last week in prime time against Dallas. Um, the dude is having heck of a season, particularly
yeah,
at being a 28-year-old running back who has done a lot of work in his career. You wouldn't think, a bit like Derrick Henry, you wouldn't think that he'd have this much left in him. But they do. They both do. It's because they're freaks of nature. But yeah, I'm not like I said before. Whilst you were away for a little bit, Tony Pollard's a mid-end RB2. There's the
mhm.
Ty J Spears is in concussion protocol, so he might not play. So it might be entirely Pollard's backfield, but outside of that, I've got no interest in the Titans.
Yeah, mate. The schedule does open up. The last 5 games of the season, or 4 or 5 games, whatever it is for the season for fantasy, it does open up. It's going to be hard for Pollard against a good run defense in this game. But yeah, just hold for another week. Maybe even buy low on Tony Pollard because he's got the Jags twice,
Yeah.
Cincinnati, and there was another shit team top of my head. So you may start seeing the Tony Pollard of weeks 4 to 10 or 9, whatever it was of volume and just really good play. So yeah, just hold for one more week. It's going to get better.
Yeah, and you've also got, and further on your matchup, like they've got Washington week 13, which is not a good defense. Then you've got Jacksonville twice, then you've got Cincinnati, Indianapolis was the other team as
Yeah,
well. So there's real, and week 18 is the Texans, but that doesn't matter for us. Like,
yeah.
unless you, for some stupid reason, you have a week 18 championship, which is cooked. But anyway, next game we've got here,
I
the
just want to
Lions. Sorry,
I
yep,
just want
yep,
to
go.
mention that all the games that we've mentioned so far are in division matchups.
Oh, true. Yeah. Wait,
Crazy.
hang on. Oh, except the Panthers Chiefs game, right? Or am I missing something there?
I'm pretty sure they're in division.
Is that
Oh. No, they're not. Sorry, they're not.
Chargers?
Sorry,
Yeah.
they're not. My bad. Forget about me.
No, well, everything else is. Um, that's near enough's good enough, right?
Yeah.
Now, well, I didn't get to spew this on Monday, but Anthony Richardson's back. Oh, I'm very happy. Very, very happy. He has as many top 5 QB finishes as Jaden Daniels this season. Do you know that?
No, I
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah. Just, yeah.
Is it 2?
It's 2, and they're both QB4. Um, but just remember that he's a gun.
Oh,
He's back. He is back. Now, the only thing is, I say he's back, and he has to play Detroit this week, so there's
yeah.
that. Um, he's a super flex, high end QB2 this week,
With the
and
rushing
that's on
upside.
rushing volume.
Yeah.
With the rushing
Yeah.
upside, he's a high end QB2. I just think passing will be difficult. I don't think he'll be as dumb as what he was earlier in the season, but I think it'll just be limited in his uh, opportunities to pass schematically, as well as um, the coverage.
Schematically, that's a new word that I haven't heard before.
Ooh.
You just made that up, to be honest. I reckon that's not really a
No, it's a
word.
real word. It's a real word. Trust,
Okay.
trust.
All right. No, look, he looked fresh last week with the couple of weeks break as well. So yeah, with the rushing upside, I can see it being a nice, wow, an okay floor. The only problem is if he just returns back to being a poor passer. I'm giving. I'm not going to have a 1 week sample size to really see and view how I see Anthony Richardson for the rest of the year. But in saying that, he looked really, really good in the ground last week, and that's probably the Richo that we expected coming into the year. But passing wise, if he's going to be that good like he was last week, then maybe we might see that top end QB talent that we've been seeing and hoping for the year. But yeah, he's got that connection with Josh Downs. Pittman's getting better and better per week, and he's still got some weapons there in Alec Pierce and AD Mitchell and everything like that. Jonathan Taylor is still in the house too. Should make it a bit easier for him with a really solid offensive line. So I'm hoping he can compete this week and make this one close. But the Lions have just been on a tear.
Yeah, like they're so dominant. Like they are the best team in the NFL right now.
They are.
There's
Yeah.
just they're perfect in literally every aspect. Like it's scared to test me, but Brian Branch,
Yep.
like he's a
Decent
depoy
player.
candidate. Very good player. You've got Jared Goff, who, barring that one absolute nightmare of a game, which, mind you, his team still won for him, but
Yeah.
barring that absolute nightmare of a game, he's put up borderline MVP numbers. Sonic and Knuckles, they're on fire. You got Amon Ra, who's keeps on keeping on. You got Jameson Williams, he's sort of living up to the hype that he had coming into the NFL. He had a couple of lean weeks, but like he's had some monster weeks. Sam Laporta's found a little bit of form the last month or so. So like they're really firing on every single cylinder imaginable. And that's without Aiden Hutchinson. Like
Yeah.
this team could be even better. It's ridiculous how good
Mm.
these guys can be on their
And
day.
it's a good matchup for them for fantasy this week too. The Colts defense probably ranks middle to, I don't know, 75
Well,
percentile of just crap. Um,
yeah.
just an average team. So they could pile on the points again this week, and probably expecting to.
This game actually it does scream. It doesn't scream shootout, but it screams Anthony
Did a shootout
Richardson
or
might.
blowout?
It's a shootout or a blowout, and it could very well end up being a blowout with Anthony Richardson being forced to throw it late. Picks galore could occur. It could occur, or because he's a gun throwing deep downfield, it could be 3 touchdowns. Anyway, moving on from that game to wow. Okay, the Patriots and the Dolphins. Tyreek Hill had a bit of a bounce back game last week. 7 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown. 19.1 fantasy points in PPR. This is a very good matchup for him this week. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on no, I suppose Tyreek Hill this week? He's a smash start, presumably. And then leading into that, Jalen Waddle.
Waddle bench. Good matchup. Don't get me wrong, but he's been a landmine on everyone's rosters at the moment. Just hasn't been. And I said this on Monday night. I don't really know what his role is in this team, but it's definitely not as a receiver. Because this guy is, mate. He was picked 6 in the draft a few years ago. He's been a wide receiver 1 before in the league, as in like a top 12 wide receiver, or if not, very, very close to it. So why is he seeing like 2 or 3 catches a game? I don't know. So no, I bench him until I start seeing some production out of him. And look, this could be the week where you see production out of him in a good matchup, but I can't trust starting him. If you have to start him, then roll the dice, sure. Like if we're deciding between Westbrook Akine or Jalen Waddle, then yeah, sure, go with Jalen Waddle. But I wouldn't be expecting him to score big.
No, and further to that, Jalen Waddle in week 1 finished as the wide receiver 16. Since then, his highest finish in a week is wide receiver 39 in full PPR. So he is cooked. He's a cooked goose. I think you just let him sit in your bench, or if you're in a shallow league, he can be dropped to waivers now.
Yeah, in shallow leagues for sure.
It genuinely would take a Tyreek Hill injury for Waddle to be relevant again this year, I think. Is that harsh?
No, it's not.
No.
It's not.
Now, on the complete flip side of that, the Devon A Chain RB1 arc continues. As in, with Tua there, he is light and day above everyone at running back. Like, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous how good he's been. We've talked about it ad nauseum this year. When he's with Tua, it's almost 25 points a game. That continued last week, 20 and a half points, 17 carries, 73 yards, a touchdown, and 4 catches for 32 yards. He's just involved in every aspect of their offense. And this was this was the upside we talked about a lot in the preseason, that when they use him, if they use him enough, he's efficient enough to be the overall RB1. Now he won't be, because Tua missed a lot of time and Derrick Henry's having an insane season. But I think it'll be known for next year that Devon Achane maybe should be the first running back taken.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, big chance. And it all depends on Tua's health, which is a biggest question mark throughout his whole career, let's be honest. So, yeah, it just depends on Tua's health. I like A-Chain's ability, I like his upside. I like what he brings to the game. He can do it in the air, through the air. He can do it in the ground. He's just a multi-purpose running back. You can just plug him into a role and he'll do it. So, mate, I agree.
Yeah, and he's just a very good player. He's also managed to get out of this three-person committee that was talked about at the start of the season. Raheem Mostert's a non-factor. Neither is Jalen Wright. Um, it's just the Devon A Chain show now. And Jonnu Smith is, I mean, he was good last year, but he's sort of remaining relevant in in the fantasy football. Like, I dare say he'd be a high-end tight end too for rest of season, just because he's become a bit of a safety blanket for Tua.
Yeah, well, he's taking Jalen Waddle's receiving work. Um, that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, mate, I agree. He's active in the red zone too, which is a massive positive, especially for tight ends anyway. So, mate, I said the other night, his lowest score's been about a 7 in the last few weeks. So yeah, if that's his worst, then 7 at tight end is probably not awful in 2024.
No, that is very good. Oh, there goes the computer. Yeah, that's very good, and he's a pretty, as I say, a safe-ish play in fantasy football week in, week out. Now, what's not been safe is the landmine that is the not New York, sorry, the New England Patriots wide receiver room. It's sort of been every week a different person's gone big. So in this sort of, it's not really a plus matchup, is it? Like, you're not going anywhere near any of them, are you?
No, no, not a chance.
No.
No, I'm not going through anyone this week, probably except Ramondre and maybe Drake May for 2 QB leagues.
Yeah, I'm just trying to have a look at some stats for Drake May. So in the meantime, can you do a bit of filling? Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the only player that I've really got in saying that would be Ramondre Stevenson. I think I think he's actually had a half decent year with the shitty offense and offensive line that he's had. Um, you know, he can, again, another player that can do it and sort of through the air on the ground. He comes comes into the week as an RB20. But yeah, the last 4 weeks he's seen 23.5, 22.4, 8.7, and 12.9. So I expect him to probably score 10 plus points in this game, and that's a solid RB2 in my opinion.
Yeah, and now I'll speak on Drake May. Now, Drake May in his full starting games is averaging 18.1 fantasy points a game, right? That's pretty good for a rookie QB. Now, that puts him at the QB 12 on the year in points per game. There are two rookie QBs ahead of him, and Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, but like some of the names he's ahead of are Geno Smith in this season, who's passing ridiculous amounts, Sam Darnold, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, uh, Justin Herbert, and Dak Prescott. Now they're pretty good numbers there from Drake May, and he's been a very solid starter regardless of opposition.
Yeah, I agree, mate. And it's probably more because he's got the rushing ability too to go along with it too. So,
Mm.
he's been seeing rushing touchdowns to go with it too. So, if he was a stand and deliver QB, he probably would struggle in this team. If he was CJ Stroud, it'd be tough.
Mm. But the real vanilla Vic has stood up in Drake May.
Yeah,
Speaking of vanilla, yeah, sorry, yeah.
who's apparently not gay. I saw a tweet today.
Yeah, breaking news. Speaking of Vanilla Vic, hey, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, New York Giants, Daniel Jones, QB4 on the team. Tim Boyle practiced ahead of Daniel Jones today. What is
Mm.
going on, man? Like, I get he's no good, but you don't send the practice squad QB out ahead of him, surely.
They don't want to
That's
pay him.
malpractice. That's malpractice. That's ridiculous.
They don't want to pay him.
Oh, sure, but you
At
don't
all.
you don't spit in his face and say,
Uh,
"Nah, you're practice squad worthy, mate." It's not his fault they paid him 40 million. You know?
Yeah, it
Uh,
is.
well, dude. Anyway, the Italian stallion Tommy DeVito is in at quarterback for the New York Giants. Yeah. Uh, uh, I can't see anything changing for this offense though. Like
No,
it wasn't good before. It's not going to be any
makes it
worse.
worse.
It's not going to be any better. Um, Malik Davis is still going to be a borderline wide receiver one every week just because he'll have so much volume and he's a stud. Like there's that. And then also Tyrone Tracy, he's been finishing as an RB1 in every game since he became barring he's had sorry, let me reword that. He's had two top 10 RB finishes, and I think in points per game since he became a starter, he's in top 12. That's what I was trying to say. Um he's got a great rest of season schedule. He's got Tampa Bay this week, Dallas, then New Orleans. That's an amazing 3 game stretch. Then he runs into Baltimore, that's middling, and then Atlanta and Indianapolis. So like it's a great run. Tyrone Tracy, whew, smash star.
I'm going to be a glass half empty sort of guy in this one. Be real
Here we
negative,
go.
that negative Nancy that sits and parties in the corner and B's negative. Look at the guy dancing on a dance floor. Look at his shit dance moves. They're just enjoying themselves, mate. But I'm going to be that guy right about now. And I'm going to say either Tyrone Tracy or Malik Neighbors is going to be affected by this QB change. And for the bad, too. I don't believe that this is an upgrade at QB. I think Danny Dimes still sucks, might I add. But he moves the ball well enough to be at least or make like neighbors serviceable, and same with Tyro and Tracy. So I think it's a downgrade to bring in Tommy Cutlets, and I know why they did it because they want to save money. I get all that. I completely understand. Their season's done. They're 2-8, so there's no point persisting with Danny Dimes. I get it, but for a fantasy perspective, I think it's going to affect one of the two. There's no way that these guys get better, in my opinion. I could be completely wrong, and it's going to bite me on the ass. But I truly do believe that one of those two players will probably get affected by this.
Even if Tracy's volume gets affected, I think the matchups are good enough for him on the ground where he'll be okay still. What I will say though is that there was a sneaky pickup early on in the season of Wandale Robinson and his immense amount of volume in PPR leagues. You can kiss that goodbye.
Mm.
Um, he's absolutely the biggest casualty because when they're even with Danny Dimes there or Vanilla Vic or whatever your chosen nickname is for Daniel Jones, um, like it was more the fact that he'd have 9 targets a game, 7 catches. Didn't matter how many yards he actually ran for, caught for, I suppose. But now Tommy Cutlets is going to be throwing to pretty much exclusively Malik Neighbors. Um, and then if he has to check down, it'll be Tyrone Tracy. Like it's just those two. Uh, and that's where I think those two will be fine, but everyone else is a non-factor. But like, hey, we'll know this time next week, well and truly, won't we?
Absolutely. Mike Evans might return in this game. So they say he's been practicing. Probably, I'd be saying it's a 25% chance that he does start. And if he does, I mean, he's going to see he's probably going to a snap count, should I say. But upside's there for him to still have a 70-yard touchdown day too. So, yeah, I think that's fine to start if he does play. And again, what the hell do we do with these running backs? I think this is a game where you start Rashad White, Bucky Irving. I think it's still fine. Kate Otten, yep, cool, no problem starting him. I know Mark Evans is back, so that means someone's going to have to be a loser of the addition or the return. But I think the matchup's good enough that you can just roll the dice on these guys.
Yeah, I think Rashad White might take the biggest hit of all these guys though, because he's their pass catching back.
Yeah.
And he relied a lot on there not being a premium wide receiver one. Like you can even look since Mike Evans went down, I believe. Rashad White's had games where he's had 6 targets, 3 targets, 7 targets, and he's converted that at almost 100% into catches. Now, Bucky Irving and Rashad White, I suppose, both of them have really good matchups this week, as you alluded to. The Giants since week 7 have let in the most rushing yards and the third most fantasy points to running backs. So, I mean, I'm starting both. I agree, uh, with confidence. Bucky Irving, I reckon, will have a monster week though.
Mate, big chance, big chance. It's just a glorious matchup where we can just see points be plenty in this one.
Let's look at the Cowboys and the Commanders. Now,
Mm.
I hate to be harsh, but we might need to keep this one quick. Um, Cooper Rush,
Nope.
if he didn't get benched last game, he might actually never get benched for Trey Lance, which says a lot about Trey Lance, I suppose. Um, I Rico Dowdle did sweet nothing, so who cares? CD Lamb. I mean, Cooper Rush threw the ball a lot. Like he wasn't actually that terrible. It's just like you may as well. In my opinion, you should be giving Lance a go and seeing what you've got there because you're paying Dak Prescott 60 million, and if Lance is 70% as good as uh, Dak Prescott, you can get rid of him, cop the cap hit for a year, and then rebuild massively around your defense. But hey, I'm not Jerry Jones, am I? So you'll draft Ashton Genty and not worry about your defense at all, and you'll just have the same thing happen again.
Yeah, yeah, probably. But no, it's one of those things where that'll cripple a franchise if you just get rid of Dak, especially when the money these one will just cripple them. That'll be the end of the Cowboys. They'll be playing out in bloody Frisco or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, borderline Warriors at a 1 CD Lamb. Good matchup, but poor QB play. Yeah, no Jake Ferguson, so makes it a bit harder as well. Well, potentially no
Yeah.
Jake Ferguson, should I say? But
I
on the
think
other
he's
end of
out,
things,
isn't he?
yeah, he had a concussion, probably out. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the other side of things, mate, I think this is a smash start for McLaurin. Obviously, you keep playing him every week, but Brian Robinson will be the one that could be a top 5 RB this week, just due to the poor matchup. The Cowboys have been horrendous in defending running backs. Joe Mixon went off for 35. I know Joe Mixon's nowhere near the talent level of Brian Robinson, but mate, Brian Robinson has a possible RB, a top 5 RB finish this week.
They are similar style running backs, though. I will say that about Brian Robinson and Joe Mixon. They're traditional power backs who are more elusive than what you think. And I don't mind the shout about Brian Robinson. I think Austin Eckler will also have a pretty big week. I just think if you're planning to beat the Dallas Cowboys, there could be a lot of running involved. Realistically, it could be 20 carries to Brian and 10 to Eckler or something like that. And Eckler will catch passes. Like he led the Commanders in receiving last week. I don't think that'll happen again, but that's the sort of upside you have with Austin Eckler.
All you have to do is bet the Cowboys, mate. Just turn up to the venue. That's all you need to do.
Is it a home game for the Cowboys?
No, there might be a chance then.
Oh, well, okay.
Have one home game.
Cowboys probably win. Okay, we've got the Broncos and the Raiders. Now, I want to tie back to a question we spoke about before, this one, with the 14-man league, McMillan, Estime, Benson, or Westbrook Akine. Also mentioned that he has Devon Vele that he as an option, if that makes a difference. And I think it does make a difference. I think Vele is the best of those 5 options.
Possibly. It's borderline.
Borderline. Well, let's look at the Broncos offense. I mean, we spoke about Bo Nix. He has, I called him a bust very early on when he had 1 passing touchdown and 4 interceptions in the first month of playing. You know, since then, he's just become like the second coming of Tom Brady. So that's okay. He's been outstanding. Like really good. Now they've had an amazing draw, but like who cares? He's just been very good.
Yeah.
Where are they? They're 6-5, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous to say. Um, they've got Las Vegas this week. I imagine they'll be 7-5 after this one,
Yep.
barring a complete stuff up. Um, yeah, Bo Nix, he's a QB1.
He certainly is a QB1, and I don't mind the matchup for him this week either. Like, the
Mm.
Raiders aren't awful defensively, but they're not the greatest either. They're probably mid-range, which is respectable. But it just depends on. Well, Bo Nix is in that sort of that category at the moment where the main ball will go to Sutton, and then there's always a secondary player that will pop up that you just don't expect. Um,
Mm.
he had 4 passing touchdowns last week, and not one of them went to Cortland Sutton. So,
Mm.
yeah, it's going to be interesting. I can't trust the backfield at the Broncos at all. Sean Payton has been lying to us for weeks and weeks and weeks in terms of what he wants to do there. Steve was meant to be the number one coming into last week and wasn't. And Javonta was meant to be pretty much taking a back seat and didn't. So I don't know what happens there this
Well,
week.
just on the backfield, we say he didn't, like, we say Javonte came in and was kind of the number one back, but like having a look at it, he only had 9 carries. Estime still had 6, and Jaleel McLaughlin 4. It was a passing game. They just decided stuff the ground game. We'll just throw it. I feel like when we get into one
in games, which it probably will be offensively for the Broncos against this Raiders team, like they're going to be. The Raiders aren't good, but they are gritty, right? And so I do think you might see a fair bit of a workload for Audric Estime. I'm still not starting him because he's touchdown reliant. And I can't say definitively that he will score or go close to scoring. Cortland Sutton, I feel like he's a start. Nick's is a start. That's probably about it for me on that side of things.
Too. Yeah. By the way, your technology has been disconnected, and you sound like you're talking from the moon.
I'm back now.
Yeah, good now. Yeah, anyway, on the Raiders side of things, mate, no Madison and no Zamir White. That doesn't mean it's any good. Doesn't make it any better, but it might be the Amir Abdullah season this week. And that's pretty gross to say that, but it could very well be Amir Abdullah seeing
The year is 2024, and Amir Abdullah is the RB1.
Yeah,
for his team.
he could see 10 carries this week. It might be spread around a few running backs, but I would say he'd be the lead back. Do I like to start that? Fuck no. Would I want to pick him up and hold him? Maybe, because
Yeah.
the poor play at running back has been atrocious. And if he shows any form of ability this week, he may just win the job.
Yeah, better late than never, potentially, for Amir Abdullah at age 31. He hasn't had 10 carries in a game since week 11 of 2017.
Yeah. And it
He
might
was
not be this
drafted in
week.
2015, and it may not be this week. I personally would be stashing Dylan Laub. I think he'll be on a lot of rookie, in a lot of taxi squads. I think he will be involved to some extent this week. I think where we'll see if he's actually any good, he could be in and out of the league like that, though. He might not last long, but
that's a good shout, though, mate. That's a really good shout because he's a rookie running back coming into the league, right? And the job is screaming for someone to take it. So again, if he sees 10 carries in this game and performs, then the job's there. He can take it next week.
he could take it next week. I'm just going to quickly roster him in the Dynasty of Insight. One sec.
I was thinking that pick him up. I was going to go through all the leagues and go, fuck it. I'll just throw the dartboard, and I'm probably going to do that when we go off air. But I don't mind that shout, mate. Honestly, yeah. If you're listening, I know 35 of you are, plus a few on YouTube. If you got a spare spot for Dylan Laub, pick him up now and stash him and see what he can do. It might be 0 carries, but it could be 10.
It could be 10. It could be it could actually be anything. right? Like,
We're going to have zero viewers because everyone's going to go to their sleeper app and pick him up.
well, I'm doing that right now, so you've got one podcast host as well. No, let's look at the next game. I suppose that would be the 49ers and the Packers. This to me is screaming game of the week. Um, there is one coming up which I quite like, but this is a very good game. The Niners need to win to pretty much keep their playoff hopes alive because we're one Cardinals win away from there being a three-gap lead from first to second in this league in that division. And I don't think you're getting two teams from that division making the playoffs from the NFC.
Yeah, big game. And so I'm going to start with the Niners while we're on them. Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, because that's sort of how he's been playing at the moment. Sort of lining up in those similar areas to what Brandon Ayuk did and doing it better than Brandon Ayuk did this year, might I add. Smashed up for the remainder of the year. He looks like he is just phenomenal for this offense. Again, such an underrated player. Seeing bulk targets week in, week out. Kittle is back this week, expected to play. Well, he said he'll play. So that may hamper Juwan Jennings just a little bit. But all in all, mate, this guy has really been solid for this team. Deebo Samuel, I'd be a little bit concerned about. He sort of hasn't been screaming bulk targets or big scores, but Juwan Jennings has been for me. So until I see otherwise and his target share goes down, yeah, Brandon Ayuk, aka Juwan Jennings, start.
Yeah, Jawan Jennings is like I've got him in a couple of deep leagues just as like I don't know why he was on my roster, but he was, and he's had a massive year. Really broken out, and I think he'll continue on with it and maybe, just maybe force not one, force Devo Samuel out of the building potentially. Now Christian McCaffrey has come back in a big way. He's gone 16.7, 14.6 in PPR leagues the last 2 weeks. I expect much of the same this week. Dominating snap share. He'll have every touch in the backfield, barring maybe one or two. Uh, yeah, every week starter.
Can't disagree.
Yeah. Kittle, did he practice? Yes, he will play this week. The dude hasn't finished outside of the top 10 in tight ends each week this year. He has never had a tight end 11 or lower, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. And I would put him, had he not missed last week, he would have been my favourite to finish tight end one. And he might still be.
Yeah, he
might
be.
still be.
He could be.
On the flip side, Josh Jacobs has a good matchup this week. He's been the bell cow. Emmanuel Wilson hasn't done too much the last little while. He was threatening early on in the season, but not much since. Pretty keen on Josh Jacobs this week. And let's have a guess who's going to be the main guy in the wide receiver room for the Packers.
Let me just spin the wheel, mate. Hang on, give me 1 second. Lottery wheel is spinning. Jaden Reed is the guy.
Jaden Reed. There we go.
Yep.
You're meaning to tell me that it won't be Bo Melton?
No, it wasn't on the wheel.
Oh, bummer. Oh, fair enough, actually. Okay, next game, we've got the Seahawks and the Cardinals. I think this is a big game in division, as I alluded to before. If the Seahawks win, well, Cardinals and Seahawks will be equal record in that division. However, if the Cardinals lose, they go to 7-4, and there's a potential for the Rams, the Seahawks, and the Niners to be 5-6. So there's that. Basically, if the Cardinals win, they've almost locked up the division, which is ridiculous to think about.
Yeah, it really is. It really, really is. Could be a potential game of the week. I think it's a 50-50 game. I've got Seattle slightly ahead, but not by much. But this could be another week for Marvin Harrison to have a big game. I think it's a pretty good matchup for him. I don't hate the matchup at all. And I truly believe that Marvin Harrison could be a top 12 wide receiver this week. But then again, you just don't know what this Arizona offense is going to show because, James Conner gets involved. Trey Benson has actually been okay the last couple of weeks, efficient with his touches and getting more and more of them. So he's in an upward trend. And then you still got Trey McBride in the house who's dominating still. So it's a hard one to predict, but I do think that it's a really good matchup here for Marvin Harrison.
They've got weapons at the Cardinals. And I suppose on the flip side of things, I don't know about you. I'm starting Gino. I'm starting Kenneth Walker. I'm starting DK. And I tell you who I sure as hell am starting, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who has had 2 massive games back to back. 2 weeks ago, in week 9, sorry, he had 7 catches for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. Last week, he went 10 catches for 110 yards, as well as an 8-yard rush. Look, I got to say, having the breakout of Jackson Smith and Jigba, as well as DK Metcalf's best season for a little while, throwing to that, Gino's balling out as a passer, really. Like, it's just not with very little time in the pocket. It's been a perfect recipe. Now they just need to not have as many botched snaps go over the top of Gino's head as what they've had.
Yeah, I agree. Mate, again, the Cardinals defense has been sneakily okay, but I'm not afraid when you see the Cardinals defense. So there's potential here for this Seahawks offense to go berserk too. And mate, this could be a potential shootout too. This could be a really, really good game and fun game to watch.
Yeah. Oh, and quickly, did you see that the Seahawks released Tyrell Dodson as well, the middle linebacker?
No.
No. Yeah, it was like a gun middle linebacker for us, and they released him for no good reason. Anyway, I was a bit upset. Anyway, back to the primetime game, and it's the Eagles and the Rams. The Eagles 8-2. This is yet again. I can't see the Eagles losing this game. I just
Shouldn't.
can't.
No, they shouldn't. They really shouldn't. But this is the battle of 2 solid RBs in Saquon and Kyron Williams. I mentioned on Monday night or Tuesday night, should I say? Kyron Williams had a game of 85 yards on the ground, which is a really, really solid game. He's carrying 5 yards per carry, but didn't have any passing work, receiving work, or anything like that, or had no touchdowns. So the Eagles' defense as well has been solid this year. So in saying that, the 2 Eagles rookie cornerbacks, have been true lockdowns this year so far. Have got a book of players in that book already, but they come up against Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. So this is going to be interesting.
On their day, they're both top 5 in the league. On their day. Now, and you've got future first ballot Hall of Famer Matthew Stafford as well.
Yep.
Like, it's one of them's going to do well. One of them's going to do it. I don't think I don't think 2 rookies are going to truly lock those 2 down.
I'm so excited to see how this goes.
Yeah.
This will define how good these corners really are and how we view them for the remainder of the season if they can stop or contain Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. But if Cooper Kupp and Nacua get off the chain here, then I'm going to sort of question how good they really are. They're still really good, but they can be beaten. So far, they haven't been beaten.
No, only by like very, very elite teams from memory. But you've got to back in the class, I suppose, of Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp in this one, in my eyes. Let's move to the last game. Ravens Chargers. Lamar Jackson had a down week last week. admittedly, his receivers didn't help him at all. They were dropping sitters. But that's the nature of the beast when you play the Steelers defense. It's a gun defense. Now, the Charge defense is also very good. So it's not going to be an easy week for Lamar Jackson, but I'd still back him to have a either gun quarterback and the QB1 this year, or top 5 QB at the very least. So I'm backing him in for a big finish, big game yet again. But what stands out for you in this one?
For me, it's probably the J.K. Dobbins Gus Edwards partnership. For me, is probably the biggest thing that screams out to me. Last week it was 11 carries to 6 in terms of in favor of J.K. Dobbins, but he did have the 2 rushing touchdowns on the day, which sort of propelled him to a really solid score. In saying that, if he doesn't have his last rushing touchdown, it's not a good day. He's been inefficient the last, I don't know, 3 out of the last 5 weeks. He's been inefficient, and Gus Edwards is back, and he's just eating into Dobbins' work at the moment. So, look, is it a 75-25 split? Probably. Maybe it's 70-30, something around there. But I want to see again how many more. Is this going to be closer to a 50-50 split, or is this going to stay at where it's currently at?
Yeah, it's something to monitor. I'm not sure I'm willing to start J.K. Dobbins this week if I can avoid it. If I can't, I'll start him. But I'd rather put him on the bench, see how this goes, and draw from that. Because, like, Gus Edwards getting 6 carries last week and 10 the week before, and then you combine that with, as you say, J.K. Dobbins having high teens or low teens, low teens carries. It's not filling you with a lot of confidence. Lad McConkey, in my eyes, and this is a bit controversial, Lad McConkey, in my eyes, is a smash start.
Yeah, I don't disagree. The QB play with Herbert has been really, really good since he's been off their bye, which was week 4. So he's been really solid. And McConkey's got a really solid matchup here too. So the Ravens defense has been leaking left, right, and center, and McConkey is the number 1. This has got a really nice play here for McConkey, and could be north of 15 plus.
Yeah. Outside of that, I don't think there's much. Will Dissly has been a very safe tight end as well this year, particularly in the last. Well, actually, no, I'm going to take that back. He hasn't been a safe tight end, but he does have a bit of a ceiling on him, is what I should say. So in this matchup, not the worst shout, but look, I think if you're looking at playing Will Dissly, you're already pretty desperate. I think in that regard.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, on that note, shall we leave it there? I think we've covered every game, we've covered every player just about. Hopefully that's helped with your start sits. We'll be back next week having a look back at the week that was, and then business as usual, getting closer and closer to fantasy playoffs. How many leagues are you in contention with for your fantasy playoffs?
Probably every single one but one. So what? 6
That's
out of
pretty
7.
good.
Yeah,
It's pretty good. I look. I think there's 1 or 2 leagues which are pretty grim, but everything else, and I'm in 12. So in everything else, I'm there or thereabouts.
Well,
There
mate,
you
the
go.
one league that I'm not in contention for is the league that has a punishment of busking. So I could be a laughing point of this podcast in the future if that does come up. And mate, honestly, huge chance.
Huge chance. There we go. Watch this space. We'll be checking in. All right. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next time.